views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff and management of WWDB-TV.
Whether she's walking the red carpet or doing interviews, you'll find her with celebrities and all the latest news. She's here, she's there, she's everywhere, she's always on the go. So sit back, relax, and get ready, 'cause it's the Corey Taylor Talks Show.
Hello everybody, and welcome to Corey Taylor Talks, live from Las Vegas, the #1 talk show. So I have today the really inspiring, incredible, he has been through so much since literally he's been born, and he's just overcome obstacle after obstacle and has defied all the odds, and he has just come out on top every time. And although he's been through so many challenges, he still has an amazing sense of humor, and he's just a really, really inspiring guy that I think a lot of people can look up to. And he has an incredible book that really shows his whole story. So I am so honored to have the one and only Mr. Stephen Taibbi with me. So hi, Stephen, how are you?
Hi, Corey. How are you today? Thank you for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Oh, my goodness, of course. And like I said, really, I know a lot about your story and everything because I have been reading up on you, and your book is just incredible. But for the people who might not know your story, why don't you share, like I said, it's been a lot that you've been through, but why don't you share your story for people?
All right. The elevator pitch version of my story is I had my first 3 operations on the day I was born. They were minor, but I had 3 operations on the day I was born. When I was 5, they found out that I had something called ASD, that's atrial septum defect, and that's a hole in the heart is a common name for that. And at the time that I had that operation when I was a child, the survival rate was 50%. I had my first operation when I was 5. Then they realized I needed a second operation for another hole. And at that time, the survival rate for 2 operations for ASD was 0. And I was the first person to live through 2 operations for that repair, which is I'm very glad for. And then when I was 17, I had another I had a major heart incident on my 17th birthday, and I had an out-of-body experience on that one. My parents were told to make plans. They didn't think I'd get through the night. Then I was told that I would never get out of my 20s. Then I was told I would not I was told I wouldn't get past 10. Then I wouldn't get out of my teenage years. Then I wouldn't get out of my 20s. And then in my 30s, they told me I had beaten everything. And then when I was in my 40s, they found out that my heart was dying because I had caught a virus. So I needed a heart transplant, and I had my second heart transplant 3 years ago. So that's it in a nutshell.
Wow. And like I said, obviously you have this incredible book. It's called Grateful Guilt: Living in the Shadows of My Heart, And you really just obviously in depth, but you just kind of talk about your story, and I'm sure there's a lot of things we don't even think of for people who've not been through experiences such as yours. So I think it's kind of a learning experience for a lot of people, and for a lot of people who have been through it, I think they can relate, and that's kind of a healing experience for them. And what's cool is you have a great outlook on everything, and although all of the negative stuff, you made it into a positive and happy and healing thing, and I think that's just such a cool thing.
Yeah, well, isn't that what life is about anyway? No matter what life throws at you, you're supposed to take it and turn it into something good.
Yeah, well, that's what you're supposed to do, but I think it's a lot easier said than done, you know?
I guess so. I guess so. I mean, I certainly have had my difficulties in dealing with stuff, but I've always managed to maintain an attitude that gets me through these things, you know? And I've always maintained strategies whenever I had to be hospitalized, and I use strategies in my life. And those make things a lot easier, too, you know? So, I think my parents started me off with a strategy when I was a kid that they wouldn't let me think I was sick. So even though I really was sick, they made me play and they made me do everything else all the other kids did. And I kind of picked up on that and enhanced it as I got older and got even stronger with that attitude than my parents had been. So I think that helped push me in the right direction originally.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the strategies because you do talk about that a lot. What kind of strategies do you use? Because especially as a kid, I think that's incredible that your parents made you feel that you were healthy and a normal kid, and they made you play like that, and I think that's such a cool thing. But how did you do that? Because as a child, I mean, even though they made you think that, when you're going through surgeries and operations, I'm sure you kind of realize. So what was your strategies from a childhood to now?
Okay, well, when I was in my childhood, I used disassociation was my first real strategy in the hospitals, and that's where I just made myself go someplace else, and I got really, really good at that. That was my first strategy, and believe it or not, my second strategy was when I was 6 years old, when I was going in for the second operation. Back then, we're talking a long time ago, back then they didn't talk to kids like they do today in hospitals. Kids were to be seen and not heard. That was the most common saying you could ever hear back then. Right. Kids were to be seen and not heard. And they didn't tell you anything. They didn't tell you they just said you were going in for an operation. They didn't tell you what was going to happen to you. They didn't tell you what you were going to look like afterwards. They didn't do anything. They didn't ask your permission. It just was done to you, But just before my second operation, the day before my second operation, they gave me last rites. Now, nobody's telling me anything, but yet a priest shows up in my room giving me last rites. I was a little Italian Catholic kid. I knew what that meant, and that got me moved. So I realized absolutely, even though nobody told me, that I was in the fight for my life. And when I got through it, I then learned how to embrace the idea of my death. And that was one of the biggest things to affect my entire life, was really understanding and learning that one day I was going to die. And that, believe it or not, makes you free to live your life the way you want to.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting way to look at it, and I'm kind of incredible that at such a young age you were able to do that. I mean, honestly, kind of unheard of, and I think your mind's very powerful, and I truly believe that's really one of the reasons why you have survived all this, is you seem to have such a positive outlook, and I think that's so important for people to really learn, because like I said, it's easier said than done, but you have done it, and you really, I mean, you beat all the odds, and that's really just unheard of but amazing.
Well, do you want to know what I believe, and of course it could be different for other people, but do you want to know what I believe is the absolute key to success and happiness in this life?
Yes.
The attitude of always being grateful. That is the key to everything. Now, let's say because I was profoundly ill when I was 5, when I was 6, when I was 17, when I was in my 40s, and when I was in my late 50s. I was profoundly ill all those times. And all those times, I took on the attitude of gratitude. And when I take on the attitude of gratitude, when I'm grateful for every single thing that happens, including the profound illness, you have to include the bad. You have to be grateful for everything, not the good things. That's the secret. If you're only grateful for what's good, then there's no power to it. There's no meaning to it, because anybody can be grateful for that. But when you can be grateful for what's going wrong, that gives you an amazing amount of power, and it just fills you. And when you're filled with gratitude, there's no room in you anywhere for doubt, for fear, for angst, for anger, for any of those negative emotions that literally, in those situations, could be the difference between life and death. And that's really the secret, is being grateful all the time. And once you're grateful like that, it's almost as if you have like a nuclear battery in you. You're supercharged. You're all powerful. It's just an amazing thing.
You know, I literally just started reading The Magic, which is like part of the Secret series, and that sounds exactly like what it's about. Have you read those books, or because that's exactly what they're about?
No, but I know one of the authors actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But But it's you know what? It's not like that I'm a genius. I'm just
Right.
it's a universal truth. You know.
Yeah, no,
Like
and I really believe that because I just started getting into it, and so quickly you have seen such a giant difference, and I really believe being grateful is, like you said, the key thing, and I always thought I was a grateful person, and I think that's something you need to work on, because like you said, you're so grateful for the good things, but you need to be grateful for everything and really show that everything has a purpose and making you a stronger person or whatever it is. So I think that's a really cool thing, and that's literally what I'm reading about right now and trying to do with my life. So I think that's amazing that you just said that too.
Yeah, but remember the trick to this is that you have to be grateful for the bad.
Absolutely.
That's really the trick, because it's really easy to be grateful for the good, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Right?
It sure is.
Oh, I got a new puppy. I'm grateful. You know, that's easy. You know?
Yeah.
But when your mother is dying in your arms, that's hard.
Right.
You know, and I had that happen. And when my mother died in my arms, of course, I mean, I wailed like a Klingon when she died.
Right.
But I was also grateful at the same time.
Yeah. No, I think that's amazing. And you also, I know you talk a lot, and you could tell from you just talking right now, but you talk a lot about sense of humor. And you, even throughout the book, I mean, obviously you talk about a lot of deep things that are going on and bad experience you've had, but you keep a great sense of humor throughout it. So is that also a key thing you try to incorporate?
Yeah, humor is vital. I always tell my wife, I'm married, and that's not so funny, but I am married. But I'm always telling my wife that I want my last words to be my funniest joke. You know, and she and I have an agreement that because, you know, when I first came out of my first transplant, my wife has a very, very large family. Her immediate family is 472,000 people. So, you know, that kind of Italian family. And we went to a wedding right after my first transplant, and everybody wanted to know the story. And, you know, there were literally hundreds of people there.
Right.
And every single person wanted to talk to me and wanted to hear the story. So after a while, I just started saying, I'm still not dead. And that's become my battle cry. I go to my doctors. They go to me, how you doing? I go, I'm still not dead. And they get mad at me, but I think it's hysterical. But now my wife and I have an agreement that when I die, my tombstone is going to read, now I'm dead. So I'm going to do that and I think that, you know, somebody's grieving and they're walking through the cemetery, and if they happen to look over and see that, maybe it'll make them laugh.
Yeah.
That would make me happy. But yes, humor, I think, especially once I got older. You know, when I was 5 and 6, I was just a little, you know, rattled little kid, doing the best he could to survive. But as I got older and I was more able to develop strategies and think things through more, I realized that humor is one of the great keys to life, and you just have to have a sense of humor about everything that's happening to you. You have to have a sense of humor about it. You know, Voltaire says that God is the comedian that's playing to an audience that's too scared to laugh. I think that's true.
Yeah. No,
humor is very important.
No, absolutely, and I think just in general in the world and everything, anyone could use more happiness and a sense of humor, and just like you said, be more grateful and positive, and really try and have a positive outlook on everything. And I think it takes practice. It's not something that just happens overnight. But
yes, you just hit it on the head. It takes practice.
Yeah.
You got it right. You got it right, Corey.
Well, I think that's really cool that you did this. And what actually compelled you to write a book about your story?
Okay, that's interesting. I always knew that I had a unique story. I am the first person in the world to live through 2 open hearts for ASD repair. Wow. That makes it fairly unique. I've had 4 open heart surgeries in total, including I've had 2 heart transplants. I've been being operated on since the day I'm born. I haven't met another person with my story. And when I realized how unique it was, and then all my friends were constantly telling me, you have to write this, you have to write this. People need to hear this. Your story will help others. And that's ultimately what made me write the book, was I'm using my story as an analogy for other people to use for themselves. So, I mean, look, I think I've been through the mill, but I know people who have been through much worse than me. So, everybody has their own burden in this life, but when you start thinking about how bad everything is, I'm hoping that my book will show most people. I've actually had it worse than most, though there are a lot who've had it worse than me. But if somebody thinks they're having it bad and they didn't have it as bad as me, maybe it'll make them feel like, hey, maybe I can get through this. And even if it's really, really bad, just the ideas and the strategies and the perseverance, all those things just to help you get through it. That's why I wrote it. I just wanted to help other people with this book.
No, I think that's really cool, and you already have. It's a 5-star review book, which is kind of unheard of, but people have just loved it, and it has amazing reviews, and it was one of the #1 best-selling books on Amazon. I mean, it's just really incredible, and I think it is, like I said, life-changing for a lot of people, and for people who haven't been through quite what you have, like you said, to kind of feel like, okay, this man has been through literally hell and back, and he has still an amazing sense of humor and is keep going, stronger than ever before. And then for people who have been through, like you said, just as much or worse than you, it inspires them and they can relate to you, and it keeps them going. So I think that's a really cool thing, and I'm sure you have helped a ton of people with it already.
One of the most satisfying things is I keep getting private messages on different social medias, and people are saying to me, and I don't put these in my website. I don't put these in any of the review things. These are personal, I think, because if they're sending them to me in private message, I don't think they're meaning them to be published. But I'm getting thank yous. Oh, thank you for writing this book. I finally understood what my mother went through now. Or thank you for writing this book. It helped me get through this time. But I've gotten so many of those, and it really has made it worthwhile to me.
No, I really believe that, and I'm sure there's tons of more to come, because it hasn't even been out that long, correct?
No, it hasn't.
Wow.
But it's beginning to pick up now, and that's nice, because I want the story out there. I want this out there for people,
Oh yeah, and I think word travels very fast, and I hope a lot of people really do pay attention to it, because I think it's a very important book that literally anyone can learn a lot from. So
even though I'm an old guy now, I mean, rocks recognize me and call me by name, but even though I'm an older guy now, I honestly think this is a good book for younger people.
Oh yes, of course, and you're a public speaker as well, correct?
Yes.
And so, do you where do you go and do these? Do you go to colleges or schools, or where do you do your public speaking at?
Well, since the book is I've been a public speaker on other topics, and now that the book is out, now I'm starting my speaking a new thing on this. So now it's just beginning to pick up. But hospitals are two major, I don't want to say the names until it's actually going to happen, but two major famous hospitals want me to talk to their doctors about how the doctors can be better with the patients. And I'm speaking at I speak at organ transplant organizations and things like that. And and that's picking up a lot now. People, the more I speak, the more I'm speaking. You know how that is. I know you know how that is.
Oh yeah.
So that's getting off the ground now as far as speaking associated with the book, because like you said, the book is fairly new. But the speaking is really where I think I'm going to be able to spread the word the most. And Corey, I'm on a mission right now, and I'm going to tell you about it because I think you could help spread the word. Just even if it's just now, right as we're speaking, I'm now on a mission where I want it to be where patients and doctors understand each other better, both from the patient side and the doctor side, and hospitals and patients understand each other better from both the hospital and the patient side. And I think if we can get that understanding to be better, that outcomes for everybody, for the hospitals, the doctors, and the patients, could be greatly improved. And that's my new mission, is that's really where I'm heading. And that's what I'm speaking to the hospitals about. Yeah. When I'm going to these hospitals, it's with that mission in mind, that I want them to understand the patient's perspective better, because they really, a lot of doctors really need some help in that area. And frankly, patients need a lot of help in understanding the doctor's perspective. It's a two-way street.
Oh, yeah. No, I couldn't agree more, and that's something I feel is very important too. Because unfortunately, I've had a lot of people go through the hospitals and stuff, and they've had some incredible doctors and nurses that were just truly amazing and a godsend. But then, unfortunately, there's been some bad and negative, and we've had some really bad experiences, and you could just totally tell the impact that has on them. And when they're great and positive and, like you said, understanding each other, it really is such a major healing difference versus when it's negative and they don't really care, and you can kind of tell, and the patient feels that way. And I think that's such an important thing, and I think that's really cool that you're trying, hopefully, like you said, 2 major hospitals, you can do that and really make them realize. And I mean, doctors and nurses are amazing, and I couldn't even imagine what they're doing. But just like anyone, they go through a lot of stuff, and I'm sure it's hard on them, and they see so many different things that a lot of them just become kind of they don't really care anymore, and they're just not really there anymore. And so I think that's a really great thing that you're advocating for, you know?
Yeah, I mean, they're people, and they're seeing all this stuff, and they kind of harden up just to protect themselves. You know, that's totally understandable, but unfortunately, it doesn't go with what job that they picked.
Right.
You know, and also patience. I mean, last time when I was I had to get my heart at my second heart transplant at Cedars in L.A. because here in New York the donation rate is so low I wouldn't have survived the wait. Wow. How bad is that? Wow, and while we were there, my wife and I was ambulatory the first 3 days I was there, and then I was bedbound for 57. But then we're walking the hall, my wife and I, and we hear this screaming. I mean, horror film screaming, and it's this woman who doesn't want the doctors and the nurses to come near her, and she's just screaming and cursing. There were 3 security guards in the room. Now, I ask you, how is that going to help her? How is that helping her get the doctors and the nurses to want to help her?
Right.
And that's a big key. If you're in the hospital, you're part of the care. You're as important a part of the care as the doctors or the nurses are. You are part of the care team, and you have to act like that. And one of the ways you act like that is you make sure the doctors and nurses want to come into your room. You're so polite, you're so friendly that they want to be with you.
Yeah.
I mean, it just makes sense, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. No, and just kind of with anything, but especially when it comes to your health and your health care, I agree you need to be that way.
Yeah, but, you know, I like to tell this story because a friend of mine is a cop. This friend is a cop because I teach at the police academy for about donation. And he told me that he pulled over a Porsche that was doing like 115 on the Long Island Expressway. And he said that the car was so tricked out, he was saying in his head, man, if I had that car, I'd be going that fast too. So all he was going to do was pull him over. He wanted to take a look at the car, and he was going to give the guy a warning. He wasn't even going to write him a warning. He was just going to tell him to slow down, right? As he's walking towards the car, the guy sticks his head out of the car and looks at my friend and yells, "What the F do you want?"
Oh, wow.
Now, suddenly he went from he wasn't going to get any tickets to he got 14 tickets.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
And I've always taken that story, and I've thought it's the perfect analogy for a patient in a hospital. Why are you yelling at your doctors and your nurses? What are you, an idiot?
No,
right?
It's true.
I mean, the nurses and doctors don't have guns, but they have scalpels and needles.
That's right. Yeah, and they're very smart, and they know how to use it.
Yes, they do. Right. Oh, did that hurt? I'm sorry.
No, it's true.
That usually doesn't hurt a patient.
It's true. It's very true, and I think that is a perfect analogy, and And like you said, with cops and everything too, I think that's what's happening a lot too. Is everyone's just so negative with the cops, and they're just so mean to them, and it just creates this whole negative energy. And we need to stop that. And we just, like you said, need to just be more positive. And if we have a more positive outlook, they'll have a more positive outlook, and it could be a way more peaceful exchange between people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and isn't that true just in life? I mean, no matter who you're dealing with,
Yeah.
why can't you just be as nice as you can be to that person?
Yeah.
And, a lot of times people, you don't know if a person, if their spouse or their sister or their brother is dying of cancer, or some other horrible thing is happening in their life. They just got some other kind of terrible news, and they still have to go do their job, and then you're going to start yelling at them.
Right.
You don't know what somebody's going through. You have to always try to be as nice as you can to everybody, because you don't have any idea what that person is going through.
No, it's very true. And I also want to talk about, too, because I'm an actor and I'm in the film community here, but you were a director and a producer for 25 years, too, correct?
Yes.
That's so cool. How did you get involved with that? And are you still doing it? Are you planning on continuing it? Or?
No, I quit television a long time ago. But I had 25 years in it, and I really enjoyed it. It was something I wanted to do. I always wanted to have a job that was a hobby.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I learned as a little kid how short life is. So I never wanted to have a job. I always wanted to just make money at something I like doing.
Yeah.
And certainly, as I know that I see your background, and I'm sure I mean, you like doing the things you do, but sometimes they're like a job.
Right.
But most of the time, they're not.
Right.
And that's the best you can hope for in this life, is to do something that most of the time isn't like a job, But everything gets like a job sometimes. But for me to have like a real, a dreary job that I wasn't interested in was never going to be something I would do.
Right.
It just, I just saw that life is too short for that.
That's right. No, I think that's so cool, and I just wanted to bring that up too, because I mean, that's a tough thing to do, being a director and producer, and actually be able to make that your career for 25 years is really amazing. So I just wanted to bring that up too, because
Corey, it was all freelance.
Really?
25 years of freelance, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, not in New York.
Wow, that's even worse. Wow.
Yeah, I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of that.
Heck
I
yeah.
did that. And I started I had my first job 2 weeks before I graduated college.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, really, you just you've, like you said, you've been through so much, but you've also had some amazing experiences, and I think that is because you had such a positive outlook, and I think that's so cool that you're helping other people and really spreading that around, and I really believe it will change just so many lives.
Well, I know that you and I share something. I know that we do, even though I don't know you. But I know this about you: you're a risk taker.
Yeah.
You take risks. You wouldn't be in the jobs that you've done if you didn't take risks.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Okay, and that is one of the great things of life. Why not take the risk? People are so afraid. They're so afraid to take a risk. Oh, what if it doesn't work? Oh. So what?
Yeah.
So what if it doesn't work? You know how many things I've failed at?
Yeah.
You don't get good at something until you fail at it. And if you're not willing to take a risk, you have to take risks. I always felt like I had to take risks. I always take risks. I'm not afraid to do anything because I know that one day life is going to kill me. So that's the big thing. So if the thing I'm trying isn't going to, you take the risk, and then you take enough risks, and next thing you know, you're getting a really rewarding life in return.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
No, I think that's an excellent point, and honestly, I mean, everything you've been saying is just really, it's just so helpful, and I mean, truly, just everything is. I think so many people can look up to and really admire and learn from, and I think you're just so wise, and I think that's come from everything you've been through and everything. But I really think so many people can learn from you. And I really think you could help make the world such a better place, and it already seems like that's happened so much. And I just hope it keeps continuing happening. And I hope especially you get to do the public speaking for the 2 hospitals, too. I think that would be really a major difference.
Yeah, that's beginning to happen. I think that's going to happen pretty well. So, yeah, and that's really really my bigger goal. And my next book is going to be centered around this idea of how do patients help themselves, and that's going to be the next book, and I think that will drive this agenda even further,
Okay.
and I'll have a section in it for the doctors too, of course.
Yeah.
But it's going to be patient centric though, when I write that book.
No, I think that's really helpful. And the healthcare system could use a lot of work, but I think that would make such an impact. And like you said, if it's just everyone's more positive, I think that makes healing happen so much quicker. And
Yes.
yeah, I really think that's a big key into getting it. So so with the doctors and and patients being their own advocates, like you say, I think that would be a big thing. So I think that book will be very successful as well.
I hope so. I hope so. It's where this is all really heading that way, is as far as that's where this whole thing, even when I started writing the book, and as you know, when I wrote the book, I decided that this book couldn't work. It wouldn't work unless I wrote it in absolute naked honesty. And I reveal things about myself that I'm not comfortable that I revealed, but I felt like if I wasn't that honest, then the book would not work. And it just had to be an honest thing, so people could see for real that I was talking from the heart, pardon the pun, but that what I was saying was true, and that maybe it would work for them too.
Yeah, I think so, and like you said, I'm sure it's very difficult to really just expose yourself and really completely put it out there. But I think that really, in the long run, will help so many, and I think it will make it that much more successful because it's just really changing a lot of people and making people understand, and I think that's a really powerful thing that you're able to do.
Well, thanks. Let's hope it works, huh?
Well, no, it's already working, and like I said, a 5-star book on Amazon. I mean, really completely unheard of. So I think people are really getting it, and like I said, I'm sure it will just keep spreading more and more. And I think it's an amazing thing. So, where can people get the book and keep up to date with you and everything that you're doing?
Well, I think I know people have told me they get it at Barnes & Noble and things like that, but I think almost everybody is doing the Amazon thing, which everybody seems to. I have a friend who doesn't buy anything if it's not from Amazon. I mean that literally.
Wow.
He doesn't leave the house. He's become an Amazon. He gets a delivery from Amazon every single day. That's literally true.
That's
so
amazing.
It's certainly on Amazon. It's on all the other book sites, and it's on in Barnes & Noble and places like that. It's on Amazon, it's on Barnes & Noble, and there's also a Kindle version.
Okay.
And the audio version will be out in a couple of months.
Oh, awesome. Are you recording that now, or have you already recorded?
Yeah, I'm recording that right now.
Awesome. No, that'd be cool. And I think it's. Are you recording it yourself?
Yes.
I think that's cool when the author actually does it. So I am excited for that.
Well, I with my background, I had 2 friends who I could have asked, who I was going to ask. And then the people around me who are, helping me with this, we were like, no, you're doing it. And I'm like, no, I'm not an actor. No, you're doing it.
No, I think you'd be perfect for it. And you already put a lot of emotion into everything and behind it. I think it'll be good to hear from yourself. I think it'll be perfect.
Well, let me tell you, I had to throw out the first 5 chapters because they were just so awful. I got better as I went along, I'm not an actor. I'm not a reader. Somebody who reads out loud for a living.
Right.
I never did any of that stuff for a living. I was a behind the camera man, I used to like to say. And, the idea of being the talent is not what I wanted to be, but everybody insisted on it. And I think, in retrospect, they're right, because people want to hear it from the author.
No, I'm glad they insisted. I agree with them completely, so I'm happy.
Yeah, well, you would, because look at you're a performer and a good one.
Thank you. Thank you.
I
Yeah.
watched your reel. I thought that was great.
Oh, thank you very
But
much.
I'll never think of cake the same way again, honestly.
No, everybody likes it, so I don't know what the problem is.
There's no problem. Yeah, everybody likes cake, so what's the problem with cake, right?
Exactly. That is so funny. But thank you so much. It really was such an honor having you on, and I'd love to have you back on. And if you ever come to Vegas, too, we'd love to have you in studio as well.
Oh, listen, anytime you call me, whatever, I'd love to be back on. I really enjoyed this a lot.
Oh, thank you.
And I like the concept of your show and what you're doing. I think you're, like I said, you're doing your part, and I think it's awesome. I really like where you're heading.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and thank you really for helping so many people, and like you said, being very vulnerable, and being honest, and having such a great outlook, and really changing so many lives. So thank you so much for doing that too.
Okay. Well, thank you, Corey. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day, and we will talk to you later.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please go check out his book and check out everything he's doing, and keep up to date with him on all his social media, because I'm excited for his next book too, and that will help a lot of people, because unfortunately many people do end up in the hospitals and whatnot, or have family members that do, and like he said, it's such an important thing to be your own advocate and your outlook, and I think that really does affect everything, and he obviously knows. He's been in the hospital a lot, so, and he has overcome everything, so I think he's just such an amazing guy, and please go out and support him, and thank you guys so much for watching, and remember, never give up, always believe, and you'll achieve. Thank you, and God bless.